Welcome to the webinar, guys. Too many estimates, not enough time. Really glad to have you all here. Some quick housekeeping items. We have over here Q&A section. If you look at your toolbar, you should be able to see Q&A. If you don't click on the More button, you will see Q&A. In the Q&A section, go in, type out your question. We'll answer them one by one. We'll take them up. You can use the chat to drop comments. Use the Q&A box to send questions that you want us to answer. After the webinar, we will send you the recording. So sit back, relax, take some notes, ready to engage for some serious knowledge coming your way. This is a small announcement we want to make for an estimated masterclass series that we'll be doing starting 10th of September. We'll be talking about all key topics, or let's just say chapters you should be aware about when you're going through your estimating process, doing production reviews, talking through the scope with your customer, bidding on big contracts, thinking about your competitors, connecting the estimate with purchase of materials and labor planning, and eventually how to connect your estimating system with the gross margin targets that you have and the overhead rates that you are seeing in your accounting system. So Fred here has tons of industry experience. He's been here almost 5 decades. And of course, he's going to be dropping some serious learning for you today here and also on our future lessons. Would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Oh, thank you, 𝐬𝐸𝐺. It's a pleasure to be here today. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about with estimating. I've been doing estimates for nearly 50 years in the green industry. So I'm the principal partner of 𝐸𝐻 Consulting. It's a consulting group that primarily focuses on the lawn, landscape, and tree care industry. I have, again, nearly 50 years in the industry. I've owned my own company in my hometown in Dover, Ohio at the beginning, and then I spent a significant amount of time with the Brickman Group, U.S. Lawns, and Valley Crest as a senior executive, mostly with large regional or national responsibilities. For the last 10 years, I've been doing consulting and focusing on the industry and managing peer groups and doing one-on-one coaching with approximately 40 companies today. That it keeps me pretty busy. And I've been working for the last several months with 𝐂𝐸𝐺 and his team to help develop this estimating platform as a significant solution for improving the estimating processes for you all.
Thank you, Fred. It's been 4 years since we started Cyclicon, and we worked with some very big companies, just sending measurements over and then seeing how these measurements were being used in all of these companies. We found this huge gap. That's why when you shared your experience of like estimating all these years, there was like a natural fit there, that there is so much more that gets missed out because folks don't have the time to put together the details as they pertain to the requirements of the site, operational details that have to be factored in as people are thinking through sales. And I mean, let's accept it that there's first not enough time during the sales process. Second, from a personality standpoint, it's not usual to have like an analytical mindset going on when you're thinking about sales, more about relations, nurturing trust. And so there's like this gap which just makes sales very different and unique in the landscaping industry. Like the software industry operates so much differently when it comes to sales compared to landscaping. And this tool is meant to bridge that gap where the qualitative analysis can happen inside a platform so that the other things that are necessary to closing the job, winning the job, closing the sale, you can focus on it. So this is on point. Like sales is not stressful, shouldn't be, but it often becomes stressful because there isn't enough time and you got just more demand from customers, or you got to do a lot of renewals because the year is turning around. And I mean, it's a challenge that everybody goes through.
Yeah, I know this guy. And yeah, I just sent him a 32nd birthday card. So yeah, it's we have those times a year where, late winter for the people that wait till the last minute. And then for the advanced planners, a lot of property managers are looking at their budgets and planning in September, October, November. So there are a couple of times a year where the estimating demands and that volume of work really spike. And a lot of companies let themselves get overloaded during that time because they don't have a complete platform for doing this process in an efficient manner. So if they're getting things done on time, there's a lot of shortcutting going on. It can be very stressful. I've been through it many times personally, and helping regional and branch teams pull this off.
So different roles go through the stress differently.
I mean, owner operators, branch managers are managing their profit centers. They're managing production as well as sales and estimating processes. They're dealing with labor. They're dealing with equipment management. They're dealing with materials purchasing and all the logistics associated with all of those things. At the same time, trying to achieve and maintain profitability and continuing to grow through these estimating spikes. So it's a challenging position for them. They have to, through this whole process, they're trying to scale their business. They're trying to grow their organizations. And all this comes together and, it really can bust up the system that you've built pretty well just because there's too much traffic going on in those peak times. And then again, the sales team, the account managers and the business developers, and in a lot of cases, the owners and the branch managers are also involved in the sales process or are the sales process for their companies, depending on what size you are, and depending on how you've developed and trained your team during this process. So the other thing that happens is to have this knowledge, to understand how to estimate the way a lot of us do it. It's very difficult to transfer this training and this information. It takes years to develop a good sense of what's going on out there, and it's not very transferable, so it's not very scalable. And that's why we developed this platform, because that will help move the needle, reduce the stress, reduce the spikes, because you can teach people and train people to utilize this estimating platform a lot easier than you can with your internal systems. We're trying to make sure everything is accurate and consistent. And again, when you're in a sales process, you should be selling, but yet a whole lot of our time is sucked up by the estimating process, measuring the properties, taking those measurements and converting them into man hours and material quantities, and therefore into actual pricing process, so you can deliver an accurate price that covers all the man hours, all the production times, all the material usage, and also make a profit with those. And what happens during these peak times, if you don't have a really good and efficient and effective system, you're going to miss opportunities. You're going to price things too high inadvertently and miss those good jobs. The jobs that you get, a significant percentage of them are going to be underpriced with low margins. And then you're putting all kinds of downward pressure on your ability to produce gross margins and net profits. So this can get pretty hectic, and a lot of things can roll over the edges if you're not really on top of this. And then we get burned out about halfway through the process in each of these spike periods. With all the volume coming in, we start dropping the ball. Things are not getting to people in a timely manner. Or if they're getting to them in a timely manner, we haven't had time to check them, double check them, make sure that pricing is accurate, making sure those estimates are accurate, so that when we do have a sale, we know that when we're handing it off to production, that the sale is accurate, that the hours are accurate, and we can produce that profitable work very quickly in starting that service line. So again, and what happens is, again, a lot of shortcuts start happening when things get delayed, when you're telling people that it's going to take you, a week and a half or 2 weeks or sometimes longer to get that estimate out to them, to get that price in front of them so they can make a decision. Again, we're rushing it because they're, again, in today's world, things are moving at twice the speed, maybe sometimes 4 times the speed, I think, of when I started in the industry. They want things now, they want things yesterday, but we also have to be able to produce those things with a level of consistency and effectiveness so that the numbers that we're producing are effective and profitable numbers. And so when we're pushing these things out fast, you can really start to have a problem with client trust if it's taking too long, or once we start servicing them, we're way under hours and underbid. So again, we want to be effective, we want to be consistent, we want to be profitable. So this is what we've developed. We've developed a system that takes the advantage of new technology, the mapping technology and AI services that have happened over the last 10 or 12 years in this industry have now been refined, and the level of accuracy that these measurements have been extremely accurate. We've seen with Site Recon, their measurements now, as we've compared them, are within the variance that we used to have with hand measurements. So it's right there, it's dead on. So the other thing too is they're fast, they're accurate, and they live within the production numbers. So now we're giving you a product that not only takes the mapping and estimating or the measurement process all the way to pricing, that gives you a consistent output that you can track hours, you can track materials, and you can deliver a profitable and accurate selling price for your clients in a quarter of the time, in a tenth of the time that it used to take us. So your cars, take us through the estimator in a box.
Thanks, Fred. So imagine a fully trained estimator that you don't have to hire, you don't have to train, you don't have to coach. Once it's set up, it becomes like a fire and forget system. Well, don't forget, because you still have to check the estimate on site. But you fire it and you get back an estimate that's built as per the process that you have in your company. When I say process, I mean the crews that you have. You have a detailed crew, a weekly crew, subcontractors, set that up. The services that these crews do, set that up, map them over to the crews. The equipments you use, the materials you apply when you do your chemical applications, the financial model that your company operates under, the overheads you have, the gross margins you are targeting. Once that's set up, then this system, you just go in, you say, I want you to estimate mowing, mulching, pruning, blowing, edging, trimming. You pick a button and the estimate comes back, right? It's like ordering a pizza. You select what the toppings you need, you click on the button, you get back data.
One thing you find in landscape maintenance estimates is there's a lot of toppings on this pizza.
Indeed, that's the menu where you pick your toppings, everything that you want to do on the site. And once you place that order, this is what it looks like when it comes back. It's got your mower decks broken out. It's got difficulty ratings in it. We are looking at is it an open area? Does it have obstacles? Does it have slopes? What's the distance between the sections? And we are using these variables to assess what the difficulty rating should be. What's the ideal deck size that goes on that section? We are obviously looking at continuity. So, you want to have as much 60-inch mowing as you can possibly, because it's fast. So the adjacent sections of turf get mowed with a 60-inch, and then we are breaking them down. The remaining areas that you can't mow, we are breaking them down where you can put a string trimmer, the areas, the lengths, and just turn this off so you can observe the details here a little bit more. So you can see how an area here is being string trimmed because you can't put a mower on that section. It's got rocks. All the lengths that you would line trim, because you got fences here, you got backyards, so you got to do some line trimming here. You got obstacles, so you got light poles, you got some other just trees even. You might have to line trim. They don't have an edge around them. So all of this being individually identified, hedge shearing being captured. So basis height, so taller hedges taking more time and effort, require a separate estimating line item than the ones that's at 4 feet. We are looking at perennial cutback. So we are looking at all that detail, because eventually each of these line items, they feed into a full-blown estimate, right? The mowing, we are breaking the machines, string trimming. And once this is with you, you can just adjust this when you are out there in the field. This came to you fully built up, which, Fred, imagine you had something like this when you were doing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It used to take us sometimes days to turn these out, depending on the size of the property. And we had to we had to do every measurement by hand, or what a lot of companies do. And just, it blows me away that they're just guesstimating. And then their accuracy on materials and man hours is very, very, highly variable with that, and not concrete or specific to that. So this takes us to a whole new level that it used to take us days and sometimes weeks on large properties to put together an adequate estimate that would give us an adequate, successful proposal that was priced to service and priced to profit with that. So, it's the level of detail that we can do is pretty awesome.
And that's needed, really, Fred. Like that's the philosophy you have, KYC. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that I've learned over the years. It is KYC, and we're not talking about chicken here. It's understanding your business. You're knowing your clients. You're knowing what they're looking for. You're knowing what kind of level of services and service mix, knowing your costs, understanding, again, what your costs are for every service, for every machine, for every material out there. Gives you a level of precision that is unparalleled. And again, through this whole process, as you're estimating, every time you present a proposal and you learn what where your competitors were at in that process, you gain more and more intelligence about where they're at in their pricing levels. So you can now target and know, depending on who you're going up against, you can know where they are in a gross margin basis against your numbers. So you're knowing your clients, you're knowing your cost, you're knowing your competitors, and in a very, very fast yet thorough and systematic process, you are producing full-blown estimates with pricings that you can present to your clients that will be competitive and profitable.
To your point, Fred, like all these dials that are available for fine tuning, this uncertainty that folks have in their minds, like, did I get that estimate right? There's a lot of back and forth happening. When you leave that production review meeting, you're like trying to get full confidence that, oh yeah, I feel good with my numbers. If you just have the detail, you get to that point faster.
Yeah, and the thing is, 𝐬𝐸𝐺, when you go out there, the way we do it today, if we're either hand measuring or we're doing guesstimations, what I call comparing similar properties, or where we're using a mapping service to give us measurements, we're still trying to figure out how to put that final piece, that final pricing together that's accurate. And the problem is with how time consuming that is, we end up again being forced to either take shortcuts or take too long and make our clients wait for these proposals. So this puts us in a position where we can be very nimble, very quick, but also very precise with what we know about our customers, our competitors, and our costs to operate.
100%. And we want you to think of this as a partnership. So to illustrate what I mean, this estimate that we put together, we also sent over notes that give you logic as to why, you're seeing a certain section in secondary mowing, for example, or a certain section of turf has been, you see string trimming applied to it instead of just regular mowing. And that's our assumption that you are seeing when you are getting the estimate. So you can validate it when you're in the field. So there's a paper trail as to why the numbers look the way they do. Ultimately, if you think about it, what we are trying to do is we are trying to take the experience of someone who's been out there in the field for decades, who can just look at a property and get it. He gets it. We are taking that and putting that into a model. And that model is being followed with that level of detail, with the breakout of machines, applying it to areas, applying difficulty ratings and actual production rates. You end up taking their experience and quantifying them into a system that just runs.
Yeah, and when you're doing your field analysis after you've ordered your pizza and it's been delivered with all the toppings on it, now you get to go out and walk the property, and you can do this live with a tablet and really understand and fine tune the estimate in real time and make those adjustments. And again, you're doing this, within a day or two of ordering the estimate. Now you're out there looking at the property. You've got the time to fine tune and adjust it to a level of precision that you haven't seen before, and still get that pricing done and be able to schedule an appointment to present that pricing to your prospect in just a matter of a couple of days. It's just amazing what you can do with that and still do everything you need to do to get that precision, that effectiveness, therefore that gross margin and that profitability.
So that's where the concept of this benchmark comes in. This precision and the model that we are talking about we think about, okay, how are others pricing their service? How should I be pricing my service? Like one idea in there, and which is built into your production rate spread, is we are not getting after like crafting diamonds here. We are doing landscaping. And so we want to keep it crisp, clean, and clean. That's where the production rates really come from.
Yeah, these production rates have been developed, out in the field over a period of years with stopwatches and precise collecting of data sets, and then continuously being validated and updated over the years. So when people use these production rates, I found over the last several years, I come back with these numbers are tight, they're good. We can meet these numbers with our production teams on a regular basis with that. And then also, again, because we're getting the quantities, we know how many pounds of fertilizer, how many yards of mulch, how many flats of flowers with a level of precision that we, again, are not used to. Therefore, our purchasing and our ability to produce this work within the realms that we need to produce profitability is much more successful than we have been in the past with that.
So the advantage here being you can be the first in the door with an accurate and comprehensive proposal, get more time for production review, and have the team focus on selling instead of estimating. When we mean selling, we are referring to creating that proposal, making sure nothing is missed on the contract side, making sure the special requirements of the site, go walk the site, do a site assessment, add that assessment to the proposal. All of that goes a long way in differentiating your conversation from others.
Right. And again, that middle point, maximizing the time for production reviews. You're not measuring, you're spending the time on the site with a complete measurement and a complete visual picture through the mapping of the property. So your ability to tighten that up, just walking around the property in real time, live, that time is so valuable, and you're not being distracted by all of the other things and trying to pull this together. So all the time that you've saved in turning this around quickly then allows you that extra time and still being quick to really do a thorough analysis of the property itself and really tighten it down, really fine tune these numbers, and still be first in the door with a comprehensive, well-priced proposal.
100%. That discussion that you have internally on where is my competitor at. So one thing that you get with the system is production rates and service mix that typically exist out there in the market. So that's the benchmark that's available to you off the shelf. You can also go in and set up your pricing model with your production rates, your service mix. When the estimate comes out, you can switch between the two. It's a toggle. And that gives you an easy way to compare and contrast where you are, where your competitor could be at. Fred, like how can someone even know where my competitor could be? Like how'd you get that in there?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I always taught and had a high expectation of with the people involved in the sales process was collecting that data. On the day that you present your information, if you're told a yes, or a few days later in the follow-up, you're told a yes. At that moment in time, your salespeople should be asking the question, where did we stand? How did we compare? Where were the other folks at that point in time? You have to do it right then and there because that's when they're the most willing to share information. Now, even more important, on those times that you get told no, that you didn't get the work, again, you ask the same question. Where were we at? What was the variance? And again, because the person, the decision maker is telling you no, there's a moment in time where they feel bad about that. And if you ask those questions right then and you capture the data, what you do is you build a document, a basic tracking document for all your competitors, so you can understand where they're at from a gross margin perspective as it compares to your numbers. So, you get an example going forward where you're up against XYZ, and you know that for jobs that you've competed with them in the past, the ones that you've won and the ones that you've lost, they typically are pricing their base contract work at around 47 or 48% gross margin, or they're at 51. You know that because you've captured that data. So now they're in the mix. And if you want this job, if it's large enough or presents, a real foothold with another property management company's portfolio that you've been trying to get into, you know where you have to be. And you can, once this estimate is completed and the pricing, you can adjust the selling price purely on gross margin. You're not manipulating scope. You're not manipulating hours. You're keeping your data and that work absolutely clean and pure. You're just manipulating the selling price to get the work. Or if you also know the client doesn't have a lot of enhancement opportunities, or it's a distant job that has a little extra travel time or things of that nature, because of who you're competing against, that you really don't want that job. So you're not going to bend over backwards to adjust your gross margin to capture. You're going to go in at your standard operating gross margin and try to sell on value in that regards and sell them on the quality of the service that you produce. So it gives you maneuvering room or wiggle room if you're capturing that data.
Ultimately, we don't want any surprises when job starts. We want to be able to justify the prices to customers. And transparency is a big piece of it. If you just get into that detail, if it's comprehensive, it's consistent, then like from sales to operations, you just like everybody agrees on where the numbers should be, where we'll perform them at, where we'll sell these services at. The idea being able to scale without dependency on certain folks in your team, right? Because there's a system that's sort of remembering it, taking care of the process, and being able to run through it again and again, whether or not these key people have time or on vacation or not the company, like those variables go out of the picture.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that this kind of eliminates, because it's based on real valid numbers, it's also customized because you're onboarded into the system with your service mix and your outcomes put in the place. These are really your numbers ultimately that have been built out in this system. And as you work through the process, you're going to know that these numbers are going to give you, from an operational standpoint, a really good starting point that's accurate. In the old days, and where we don't have precise measurements and good quantities on hours and materials, sometimes we have to work through the job for 3 or 4 weeks and gather the actual production data to see how well we did in the estimating process. This puts you right where you need to be right from the get-go. And now there may be a week or so of learning curve while the crew learns the job, but you will have faith very quickly that your numbers are accurate long-term for the servicing of this property.
So ultimately, never miss any detail. You can conduct fast, conflict-free production reviews. You can adjust pricing, adjusting or sacrificing profit margins. You can see where the competition is at. You can run smoother operations. Quick point here, when we mean smoother operations, is just being able to forecast better. That matters big time, because you want a job, now you have to perform that job within those parameters.
And then the production team is happy to receive the new job because they have faith internally that the numbers presented to the client to capture the job are going to give them accurate numbers to produce the work. And we all know where the conflicts are between the sales team and the production team many times as we're learning the job kind of by rote after we've sold it. Today, as people that adopt this system and work through it, more and more the production team is going to know when they're delivered a new sale that the numbers are going to be accurate. They can plan, they can schedule right from the get-go how to produce this work. And that is an amazing stress reliever through the system and allows for better planning. And that's just what we're talking about here. You gain control of your functions because going in that there's very little variance in how much mulch, how much fertilizer, how many man hours, with travel time, things of that nature. It's giving you a level of precision from the sales processing transferring to the production process that we haven't had or experienced before with this level of detail.
So there are some obvious questions here, like, is it accurate? Is it fast? And want to answer the accuracy piece first. We've been out there last 2 months comparing the numbers that the system is generating with actual numbers in the field. And it's getting really close. Really close means within an hour or two of specific services like pruning. So a customer we have in North Carolina, they compared these numbers with the pruning numbers. They had actual numbers in the field, right? And they had like 133 hours being estimated for actual pruning, and we were at 133.7. So it was absurd how close that was. And on the weekly services, it was like we were at 48 hours, they were at 47 point something. But when they sold the job, they sold it at 34 hours because they were like, oh, there's this big competitor in front of us and you want to really win this. So we're going to adjust the weekly numbers. So like, yeah, he was having a load of regret when I was showing him the system, but he got it.
Yeah, it allows you much more to get it right the first time. You can adjust your selling price, you can adjust your margins to capture, but from a planning standpoint that your labor times, your material quantities are going to be accurate from the planning and execution process.
Yep. And by the way, this one and a few other customers that we've spoken to, they did not have their own estimating system set up in here. Like this was just a demo we did for them with none of their things being set up in here in terms of like, services, production rates and whatnot. And still it got that close across the country.
I guess those numbers are pretty accurate then.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have been tested for many, many years.
So one objection that we are running into is, and it's like, I just use this estimating software, right? Why should I use another one? And I have a perspective into it. You have a perspective into it, Fred. Like I feel that your software works only as well as the data you feed into it. It's a garbage in, garbage out system. So if you have a lot of assumptions going into your estimate, that's what the software will produce. And like think about the consistency you would need to have like the same level of, let's say, gross margin targets being met for every job, or you want to have like some control over this is where I price at, so that if you lose a job, it's not because of the price, it's because of the customer or something else went. So if you don't feed good data into the system, you don't get good outputs.
And I see this all the time because, when you're using one of these, really good OS systems like BOSS or Aspire, LMN, synced up, they're out there, but they have data sets, but they don't have all the detail in the catalog. That's your responsibility to set up and build out. And I know clients that I have that have been using an OS system for several years, and they still don't have their catalogs completely up to date, and they haven't validated all their production rates within that catalog on that because it's an arduous task. I mean, the first time I worked on developing production rates like this in the field, it was a 2-year project that we did in all 4 quadrants of the United States. It was a massive undertaking to get accurate numbers that these are based on with that process. And very few companies have the time or the resources to put together those production rates to actually enter in to their estimating software with their OS platform on that. So again, this gives them all of the data they need at a much higher level of detail than anything that comes out of buying an off-the-shelf OS system and then trying to figure out all these numbers and plug them in on your own, because it's already there in the system.
Yeah. The first customer we worked with on this project, Fred, like he wanted to move from residential maintenance to commercial maintenance. And like he needed that input to actually set that up inside. So he used a great tool, but you need to have that setup. And that setup, you can refer to what's in the system here to actually give you a huge leg up and come to like very close to the best practices in the market, off the shelf. Trust this. Why should someone trust this over their expertise, Fred? Like, what's your 2 cents on it?
Well, again, in most companies that I work with, there are 1 or 2 folks in their system that have the expertise to truly estimate from measurements or truly understand what it takes to produce an average size job on that. So this was not developed, the measurements here, the production rates were not developed by Site Recon. They were developed from the field, from my experience over years with three major national companies that we did these projects for. So the numbers work, they're validated, and the biggest problem that's out there is for an individual that's good at estimating, how do I teach estimating to other folks in my organization so we can scale? Because it's took years to collect this data, but also takes years to learn how to use the data once you have it effectively and capture that information at this level of detail. So again, most companies are having trouble scaling because they're having trouble teaching how to estimate and how to analyze estimates and turn them into pricing and proposals. This system does most of it for you and allows you to fine tune it with just a simple walk of the property on that. And that is eminently easier and faster to teach and then develop consistent outputs from multiple people, allowing you now for the first time to really scale your estimating and pricing processes with a high degree of accuracy.
So, question for you all who are here attending this session. Would you like a demo of the estimator? I've just launched this poll. If you do, you can click on yes. What we'll do on the demo is we'll start with an audit of your estimation process. We'll find opportunities for improvement. We'll figure out how this can fit in with your workflows. Then we'll estimate a property of your choice. So ideally, pick out a property that you are operating on. Also, you estimated in the recent past. So you have estimated numbers, you have actual numbers, and we can compare those two numbers with the numbers that the system generates. Ultimately, you want to arrive at an ROI calculation for you that tells you what is the gain from switching to this new system and what's the cost involved in moving from what you do currently to this new system.
And as most people will find out when they start utilizing it, this actually will save them money at the same time, making them faster, more consistent, and more accurate in the estimating and the selling process, and therefore in the production process once you've sold a new job.
100%. And look, the thing is, when we thought about pricing this out as a product, we looked at what it's costing right now, what's the process that's running. So when we fixed that price, we obviously thought about an ROI for you. So the ROI is there. And for a lot of guys, it's been a no-brainer. If you choose to go forward with it, big question is, how long will the setup take? So setup is actually the most involved process here. We want to understand how your crew is structured, how many guys you have in it. Is it a weekly detailed irrigation lawn care kind of a setup? The services these guys perform, the labor rate, the financial model, the pricing benchmark that comes with the system already has that inbuilt as you start your subscription. However, we want to set up your model too. And if everybody's on point, you're filling in those Excel sheets quickly, we'll set this up for you within a week. Once that's ready, you basically order the pizza. You order the pizza, you get back a fully built out estimate within 24 to 48 hours. If the property is larger, of course, it could take a little longer. And then in the office, you have that detail that you're looking at on the screen right now. You take it to the field, you validate it, you look at production challenges, you look at slopes, you validated the height of hedges has been factored in correctly. Those little things, you think about frequencies, you want to think about anything extra that the property manager asked for. And voila, you're done. You have a fully built out price sheet that you're going to attach to your proposal.
And again, with
net time taken. Sorry, go on.
No. So again, you can have this, you invest a little bit of time up front, because what this represents here as a finished product is your service mix, your methodology, the type of mulch that you buy. It's your product list. It's your application process. It is built around these proven production rate numbers, but it's also based on your system and your process. And then so you know that every time you kick one of these out, that it's accurate and it's based on you, your numbers, not just something off the shelf, because we take the time to onboard you and customize it to fit your service mix, your machinery, your products. It's built around that and customized to you.
So all in all, spent 1.5, 2 hours, you were done with the estimate. And we're at the end of our presentation. Time for some questions, Fred. What do you think?
Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left for questions. So, we've gone through a lot. We had the fire hose on. We're trying to put this fire out behind us here with that. So it's a lot of information, but I think folks are going to find is this is a real game changer out there, because it's so difficult to teach someone how to consistently estimate and then consistently price and then consistently produce work, that huge bottleneck of skilled people now can be lifted, and more people can be trained thoroughly, because they're starting with a highly accurate estimate right at the beginning of the process. And then on the average property, they're spending an hour and a half or 2 hours walking around the property with a tablet with a live accurate estimate in their hand. And now they're fine tuning it and tweaking it. And that's a lot easier to learn than the whole thing from scratch in that regard. So, and then again, the other thing too, because that 1.5 to 2 hours is focused on actual delivery and performance thought processes versus being distracted by, is this measurement right? Did we get this over here? Did we capture enough of this on that? So it's much more focused and clean in terms of what it does on that. And yeah, there's going to be some larger properties where it's going to take a little longer. It's like that when you're dealing with a campus situation or something like that. But the average commercial property, a couple of hours of walking around, starting with an accurate estimate and then fine tuning it and tightening it up, is something that I think you'll really appreciate, and you'll be able to train and scale.
All right, I stopped screen share because I wasn't able to see the Q&A box. Tyler, if you're there, can you pick up these questions here? Hang on, I can see that now. All right, I got it. So
I think
Mike
Tyler's
has a
muted.
question.
You might not know he's muted. So
Yeah, okay. So Mike has a question. How is travel time handled in this system, along with what services are grouped together and don't need individual travel costs added in? Question.
Well, the first thing
Mike,
is, yeah, we've bundled a couple of groupings. One, we have basically what we call weekly services, which would be mowing, trimming, edging, possibly weeding, things of that in a group in there. And you're going to apply travel time to each of those groupings. And then what we call detail services, the pruning, the mulching, the things that aren't done every single week. You're going to, again, go in and look at how many visits does that represent in my system, and you're going to directly apply travel time to that bundle based on exactly how many trips out you're going to do. So, and then you're going to set the travel time for yourself precisely with that. It can be done at the job level, or it can be done at the day level or week level based on averages that you have throughout your existing routes. So you can customize the travel at several different places depending on the amount of visits you're going to have. And you can precisely do it at the job level or at an average level for most jobs, depending on your route density with that. So you can set the travel time as you wish in that regard.
second comment from Ivan. Great initiative, Site Recon. Thanks, Ivan. Site Recon is ahead of the curve and certainly impacting our industry in a positive way. Does this system provide an option for adding areas that were missed on the takeoff but needed after? Yes. So on the service map, essentially you can switch over. Let me share my screen again. So when you're here on the service map, you can switch back to layers within this view, and you can add or remove takeoff layers, certain polygons, sections inside these layers. So let's say you're looking at turf and you find that, this section is not turf anymore. So you can remove that and you can add a new section. So that's just like a regular mapping function that you have available to you within the tool. Just once you've adjusted it, then you go back to your estimation, you select that polygon, and you apply a new service to it, right? So first of all, you adjust the map, and then you come to your estimation section and you apply a service.
A good example would be right in there that you've shown. Let's say that's a drainage retention pond. And when you walk out on it, you realize that it has ground cover or plant material on it that's not turf. Well, you can adjust it then and just take it out or change it to string trimming area to, trim it on occasion. Let's say that it's steeper than what we estimated as with say a 48-inch machine, and you need to have, again, it could be string trim by hand, or it has to be done because of access points with a 21 or a 30-inch machine. All those things can be adjusted when you're doing your field walkthrough to really, again, tighten it down to be even more precise than it came out with the AI process.
All right, really appreciate the kind words. Thank you so much. Anonymous attendee, does this cover snow and ice services as well? Yes, cover snow and ice services as well. Essentially, you do the same process. You identify the layers where you want to apply snow services. And then once the services are applied, then there's another tab out there that tells you what it would look like per event, per push, per season. Then you can play around with those, scenarios to arrive at, however you're pricing that. Tim Flanagan is asking, how does it work with Element? How does your estimate get into our system for scheduling timesheets, ... Great question, Tim. So the best way to think, because there is no direct API integration with Element yet, we have a direct API integration with Boss. So with Element, the way to approach it would be, depends which one you buy first. Let's say you buy Site Recon first. So you have your estimating system set up here. When you buy Element, then you would want the estimating system inside Element to exactly mirror what you have inside Recon. So once the estimate is generated, it's a simple matter of copying and pasting all those items. Will take you a 2-3 minutes copying and pasting kind of a deal to complete it. If you already have Element, then when we set up Site Recon for you, then you would want Site Recon to mirror what you see inside Element, so that again, in the interim, while we think about integration with them and with other tools, that's the best way to address, getting data from one system to another. Of course, once inside your estimating system in Element, then it flows into scheduling, timesheets, and other workflows. Corey is asking, once you win a job using this estimating, sorry, Fred, you were saying.
I said that's pretty much true of any of the OS platforms, though we do have a direct link right now with Boss. And we're working on talking with the other OS systems as well. And hopefully over time through open APIs, some of that can be engaged so you don't have to cut and paste. It automatically merges.
Yep, we hit that stuff. Yeah, we want to fix that. So on it, guys. Just give us some time. Corey is asking, Fred, once you win a job using this estimating system, do you then have to take all the information and hours and enter that data into your operating system? Is there a breakdown of per service to make it an easier transfer?
I mean, it's all laid out by service, by hours, and by material quantities. It's all right there for you. And again, depending on the link to your OS system, there might have to be some cutting and pasting. But again, all that information is right there for you to utilize for your planning, your routing, scheduling, material purchasing, things of that nature. And again, another thing that we haven't really talked about yet that's going to be in one of the other in the series that we're going to do. Let's say, for example, you start using the system for new work, but you want to go back and re-estimate and remeasure all of your existing jobs so that now you're pulling out all of that data, labor, materials, things of that nature, so it's consistent. For years and years, we wished we could go do that when we started having measurements and mapping systems and things of that nature, but the amount of time and investment of resources to do that always were, just a bridge too far in that regard. Well, now, with, again, like ordering a pizza, you could sit down and go back through your existing portfolio, and let's say it's 50 or 100, or you want to do your top 25 or your biggest jobs. You don't have to do all of them. Now you've got a uniform, consistent database of labor and materials. So now you can forecast labor across your whole system much better. You can forecast materials so that now you can buy in bulk and take care of those early order programs that the suppliers have out there, because you'll know that you're going to use 2,500 yards of mulch next year, or 800 flats, 800 606 flats of begonias, or that you have, 85 acres of turf that you're going to use your program on. Now your fertilizer purchases can be forecast across your whole portfolio. Now your buying power can be utilized to buy bulk and take care of early order programs, and thus be able to save you significantly on your materials, because a lot of us purchase just in time as we need it, but we really haven't been able to forecast accurately to the square foot, to the 1,000 square foot mark on these products. Now you can, and that's going to, again, improve your gross margin significantly, because you're better at forecasting and better at purchasing. Huge advantage.
Bob is asking, so the estimate is tied to the base map. What about a user customized map? So good question there, Bob. The estimate is built inside the view you want. Let me just go back to screen share. So it can be within any view you want. So let's say you got the base view from SiteRecon, you adjusted it, you were inside the draft here. You can have your estimate inside the draft as well. So if you've adjusted the base, you can work with the draft, and the estimation exists in that. The thing is, when we send back that estimate for you to look at, then there's always a draft that the estimation is attached to. The base view remains secure. We create another draft view, and the estimation is attached to that. So if you mess with it, then it doesn't affect your base view. So you're safe that way. Questions. And there's one more here. Yes, Aman has a good question here. How can you add feedback to the map? So in case you find something that needs to be adjusted, then there's a way to add the feedback in here as well. You take a note, you drop it on the map. This one is actually approved right now. So assuming if this was in the awaiting approval stage, this would work very similarly. You would take a note, you would drop it on the map, and you would type out your feedback for our team to take care of. So adjustments that you would need in the system are possible as well. And
I mean, an example would be the estimating tool said that you could mow this area of turf with a 48-inch deck because it's large enough to be able to utilize that deck consistently on there. And yet when you're walking by doing your field adjustment, you realize that it's up 2 flights of stairs, and that it has to be done with a 21 because that's the only machine that you can pick up and go there. You can change that from 48 to 21 and put a footnote why you made that change right there, and it's live in the estimate. You don't have to go back to the office and re-enter the data. It's live right then and there through that 1.5 to 2 hour walkthrough that you're doing to really tighten things up. And that's
100%. And you want to leave those notes.
Yeah.
Yes, great example, Fred. Just to have that paper trail and accountability, you want to leave those notes.
Yep.
So that's a wrap, folks. Any other questions, please send it over to us on email. We will be sending out the recording of the webinar. We will be following up. Those of you who wanted us to reach out for a demo, we'll do that. And if someone still wants to book a meeting with us, I'm dropping a link here in chat that you can use to book a meeting right away. Let me just share it with everyone here, and hope you can come and sit for our sessions that we'll be doing very soon. We'll be reaching out with more details here on these topics. Any last words, Fred?
I think everyone should take a look at this. I think that it's going to be a significant way to improve the consistency and the speed and reduce the investment of time in your estimating process. It will also allow you to scale, because the amount of the things that you have to do to teach someone now to be a fully functional estimator and salesperson in the landscape management world now, this this makes that a significantly smaller investment in time with those folks and allows you to have more people thoroughly trained in the process, and allows you for the first time to really scale operations beyond the limitations that we've always had in place. So it's a game changer. Take a look at it. Thank you very much for your time. Again, if you have any other questions, reach out to us. We'll be happy to do that. We're really excited to share this new methodology for estimating landscape management.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, everyone. See you in these sessions soon, and good luck with the sales season ahead. See you all.
Bye-bye.
If you like what you see here, don't forget to click on the bell icon and subscribe to the channel. We post videos every single week.